Saturn retrograde in Pisces from June 17th, 2023 to November 4th, 2023. Welcome back, everyone. I'm coming on to talk to you about maybe one of the most important videos I've ever made on this channel. Who knows? We're talking about this incredible Saturn retrograde in Pisces, the rethinking of some of our spiritual paths, the rethinking and revisiting of some of our long-running, long-set perceptions. We're going to dive all into it in this video. I hope that you're all doing well and enjoying some of the wonderful July content on this channel. Yes, I've done a channel update video, which I will link below. For those of you who are new and enjoy the video, do hit the subscribe button below. And I have a lot of wonderful premium content, including 12 zodiac signs for the month ahead, as well as weekly forecasts on Patreon. Very high quality, very wonderful, seamless streaming. Go check that out. That'll be linked below as well. But yes, everyone, let's talk about this transit that will fling us straight into the stuff that matters on our spiritual path by the end of it. Okay, so we are in this Saturn retrograde. I'm getting chills as I'm thinking about it automatically. We're really weeding out things that don't have to be here. This is such a transit of elimination, okay? It's a transit of revision. It's a transit of refocusing, reformatting, restructuring, and saying no. Okay, if there ever was an astrology transit to me that was the energy of no or cancellation or pushing away, it's Saturn retrograde in Pisces, okay? That is a lot of negative energy. Okay, so first of all, Saturn as a planet is typically a negative or a dark, a yin, okay? And there's a whole conversation to be had, as many people have had this conversation about, negative. When we say the word negative, we're not talking bad, okay? But we're talking, reduction or decrease or, fade, okay? Saturn is that, Pisces is that, and the retrograde motion is that. So we have three negative energies coming together in one. This does not mean bad things are going to happen, okay? It's not ominous like that at all, actually. But it can start to be if we're trying too hard to force expansion where it doesn't work. Okay, that's not going to work, okay? June 17th to November 4th, 2023. It's not going to work to be kind of like falsely trying to expand something, trying to create bubbles, trying to create like a sense of personal inflation or a sense of economic inflation as well. I actually can predict maybe we actually have a decrease of inflation here a little bit. I mean, you never know what will happen, and there's a lot to talk. That's a whole other conversation. But at least in personal lives, you can see that things that have maybe been like falsely inflated or things that have been over the top or overly expansive, overly grandiose, will have a definite period of reduction here. As by the time that we conclude this particular Saturn retrograde, it's Saturn's first retrograde in the sign of Pisces. So many people, you all, are going to be coming out in Scorpio season there, November 4th, November 5th, with a completely different balance sheet, a completely, for most people, reduced something. Okay, now that can be reduced holdings, reduced balances, reduced energy, but it can also be reduced spending. Okay, it can be reduced spending of balances, holdings, and energy, and then leading to a larger reservoir. So this is actually what I want to talk about in this video as well. So in the July 2023 comprehensive astrology video, I touched briefly on this intuitive message that I was getting about a reservoir. Okay, so as if when like the drought happens, maybe the body of water starts to recede into the internal reservoir that can't be seen above the surface, but is there beneath the ground. That's what's going to be happening with the Saturn retrograde in Pisces for a lot of people. So what does that mean? That means harsh circumstances. Okay, droughts are harsh. Droughts cause what might have previously been an abundant resource to pull back a little bit, but that doesn't mean that there's not something that can be tapped that's underground or not visible. So here we have an interesting situation of having Pluto, yes, at that anaretic degree of Capricorn, which also deals with like hidden resources, and Saturn retrograde in Pisces, which deals with hidden resources. There's something about unseen resources here. There's something important about this Saturn retrograde transit that's going to be dealing with understanding what you didn't realize was valuable in your life before. So coming out of this nodal axis as well of Taurus and Scorpio, especially the North Node in Taurus, which was dealing a lot with like forcing something to be more valuable than it is, or trying to create a sense of like fiat value. And I'm seeing for a lot of people, starting to shift their focus from like, okay, my value is in my paycheck, my value is in this asset, and then like shifting it to a different place and being like, well, look at all of these free public spaces. Look at all, also like maybe this underground reservoir of water, you know, rather than bottled water. Look at what my ancestors have already created, even if it's just like a way of speaking or a way of perceiving the world that maybe has more value than like millions of dollars. So this is a period of time, you guys, where we have to rethink some of the value systems in our lives. Okay. This is a time where we might actually want to demonetize some things in our lives, because this is where like money really starts to mess us up, where we start thinking, okay, I have this exact amount of money, or I have this exact amount of income, and that means that I'm rich or poor. Okay. And that means that I'm like in this class, or that means that I have like this much capacity in my life. Okay, you guys, if you can get as like hands off with your, okay, it's not the right message for everybody. This isn't a financial channel. I'm just seeing some people being like overly asserting the value of money as at the same time as money being like devalued macroeconomically. So like, because of the inflation or because of devaluation in whatever regard of whatever, you know, resource it is, people feel like they have less. So they try to start conserving more. They try to start like honing the value of something that maybe just doesn't have that much value to begin with. And this is kind of like the crux, not just of this transit, but it's going to really be focused during this transit. Okay, so what we need to do is we maybe need to have things kind of like really healthy for ourselves. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of YouTube channels that can teach you how to like budget properly, or teach you how to like, you know, work with like percentages of income, or, you know, kind of dial out of compulsive spending. All of that's going to be vital, and kind of like getting things maybe somewhat automated or somewhat automatic for us. That way we can start leaning into other forms of value. And I'm really feeling that people have high value things that are already ingrained that they're just not really honing. So it's like not a very resourceful period of time. It's like wanting so much with that previous nodal axis that we had of Taurus and Scorpio. It was very particular about wanting a very specific kind of value. Like, I only want, you know, rental properties, or money is the only thing that's valuable in my life. Or like, if I don't have a certain amount of money, I feel poor. Or, and it's just not very creative. It's not very poetic, and it's not very, it's not leaving much to the imagination either. So this is like one of the very positive points of the Saturn transit through Pisces, is you can find other value forms. One of the examples that I've been using has been like, imagine you've got like a lot of ancestral land or something, and instead you're like off in the city, like working a minimum wage job to like upkeep an urbane, like not so great apartment. It's that kind of energy where it's like, we're trying to force, like, I can make money, or I can like I can make my own way, but like you already have something that's way more valuable than this will ever be in like 20 years time. And we have to really start seeing through things and start taking back our time, reclaiming our time, okay, during this time, to skip certain time-wasting mechanisms that don't have to happen. So that's the biggest thing. Saturn retrograde, regardless of what sign it's in, always shows us where we're wasting time, where we're wasting resources, where we're involved in some kind of tangent. And it's going to be the harshest it's ever been in Pisces, okay? So, and it's also a little bit less clear as well. So it's going to be like an undercurrent feeling, right? With the sign of Pisces, it's never like a super clear, precise energy. It's kind of a poetic or kind of tone-oriented energy. So there's going to be, if time wasting is happening, if we're in the wrong place, if we're not finding the right kind of value in our life, there's just going to be this overtone of chaos, or this overtone of difficulty. And that's where you can actually really get ahead in your life, is you can start to identify like, okay, this area or this experience has an overtone of chaos. That means this is not necessary. That means this is not where the value in my life is. And It's also hard during Saturn in Pisces to change things on a dime. So Saturn in Aquarius, the previous Saturn transit that we had from, I think, December 2020 until March 2023, that was a transit that you could change things on a dime. That was a very good placement for Saturn. That was a transit of fast moving and quick decision, precise decision time. Saturn in Pisces, you would already be experiencing like, okay, like I actually can't move for like another year, or like, even if I can move right now, even if I have like the financial ability to just like move whenever I want to move, I can't find the right kind of house. Like it's all already spoken for. Or there's a poetry with Saturn in Pisces about mobility. Okay. So it doesn't matter what you have. Things just don't move as easily. But at the same time, you can kind of like drift with the current. So I do see a lot of people with the Saturn retrograde going into poetic circumstances. So like, even though we have all this money, as a hypothetical example, even though we have all this money, there's not a nice house in the area that we have to be. So we're having to live in rundown circumstances because that's the only thing that's available. So it didn't matter that we had all the money in the first place. Like we had to be in a certain area and there just wasn't anything that was available for us. Contrarily, and this is interesting, we don't have any money, but somehow we're in one of the nicer areas, or somehow like things have opened up for us, or we have contacts, or we have relationships or family members who are extending kindness to us, which can also get weird. And it's not the recommendation. I'm just saying there's a poetic way that people realize the level of control that they actually have in this world, which for some people is more or less, but for everybody is not absolute. So it's important with this Saturn retrograde transit to understand that the absolute control is not our prerogative. And that also kind of empowers our spiritual journey as we realize that the things that work really, really work. And that starts to feel more powerful, and that starts to feel more hard. I was going to say hard won, but it starts to maybe not even be hard won. It's like just one. Okay. It's just one. WONONE. It's just one. Okay. So this is kind of the magic of Saturn in Pisces, but also this Saturn retrograde by the end of it is going to be showing us this. It's like, oh my gosh, I realize after seeing how difficult it is to like have self-employment, or after seeing how difficult it is to find the right kind of housing for myself, how difficult it is to kind of mesh with, strangers, or introduce myself into like new groups that I don't have momentum with. After seeing how hard that is, it makes people respect more the things that they've already done, or the momentum that they already have. That starts to be more respected by people here. So I'm seeing, the point of this is I'm seeing a major inversion of like getting so hung up on like what I need to do that's totally my own, or totally like separate from the previous momentums. And then I'm seeing more of a leveraging of what has already worked, and that needing to happen. And then that actually like enabling a new path, or enabling a new momentum that slowly over time is going to generate these new offshoots of our sort of ancestral branch system. But our relationship with that experience of creating new momentum, creating new growth, creating new splendor changes. And it's up for a change with this transit. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about in regards to Saturn in Pisces, we're going to move away from the materialistic side of Saturn and go more into the spiritual, more ethereal aspect of the sign of Pisces. Okay, this is going to be a challenge for some people, but all of the retrograde portions of Saturn in Pisces are going to specifically deal with what conflicts either with our moral compass, ethical compass, or also faith compass, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think that one of the symptoms of Saturn in Pisces in general is having like hard moral questions to answer. So things which have solid arguments on both sides. This will be exacerbated by having South Node in Libra at the same time. So you'll definitely see things along the lines of like really difficult things to make a judgment call on. Like, for example, I'm just trying to think of hypothetical examples. Say that there's someone like in the media or someone who has like a really high profile who maybe gets like some type of super huge punishment. For some people, it's going to be hard to like reconcile if that's like warranted or not. And it's going to be like easy to see both sides of it. It's a very deliberative energy. Okay, so this is going to be happening on a smaller level in individual lives as well, like not being able to decide, if certain judgments or decisions we're making in our own lives are the right or wrong decisions. It's going to be hard, and there's going to be an argument for both sides. So like for some people, choosing to be self-employed or choosing to work a traditional career, both examples are going to come with such extreme pros and cons that you're going to be able to like really make an argument for both sides. And this Saturn retrograde in Pisces is going to take things from more of like a logic orientation. And it's going to be like, well, what resonates with your spiritual journey? What resonates also with maybe your like ancestral faith-based system? What resonates and also transcends these things at the same time. So this is weird. Saturn retrograde in Pisces. It's a matter of creating harmony with your belief system, while at the same time transcending any form of like fanaticism or over the top like self restriction that certain like overly focused belief systems can also generate. And it's not super easy to find this middle ground, but that's like the challenge of this transit, is finding like that perfect balance between honoring one's own personal spiritual path while also not falling into any kind of like extreme or polarized dogmatic or, anything like that as well. Because what you have with that balance, ultimate purpose, okay? And I would really start to, this is an important thing to talk about. This is so important. It's not just Saturn retrograde, but this particular Saturn retrograde will magnify this a lot. Moving more towards acceptance of the free will of other people, and for some people, non-intervention, will definitely be the way. While still increasing your own spiritual, or while also increasing the spiritual nature of your path, combining that with not feeling the need to like control other people, not feeling the need to like judge other people, not feeling the need to change other people's momentums through that place of, for some people, arrogance, but also for some people, like feeling of moral authority. Moral authority, right? Saturn in Pisces, that's what this transit is about. And it's about the deconstruction and questioning of like how moral authority develops and exists, and the belief system component of moral authority, and sort of the legalism that also wraps around those types of social constructs. And for those of us who are like right at the sort of, I guess, like precipice of, the spiritual battle, spiritual warrior type of people, we need to maybe acknowledge the faults or the ways that previous spiritual or religious movements have corrupted or have become antithetical to their founding principles. So that's another thing, antithetical to the founding principles of anything. Okay, so like a company, anything, whatever it is, that is a part of this transit as well. And the Saturn retrograde will start to like kind of measure up those antitheses of the previous creative principles. And that's going to then be reconciled with like how things move forward. So it's like very deep, and it's also very high at the same time. And for that reason, it's kind of agoraphobic, or it's kind of like, when you're in like a really tall building and you're looking down, like that's the feeling with Saturn and Pisces, is like distance and height, and also polarity or distance between two extremes. Without both, the entire spectrum doesn't exist. So people have a greater depth perception here. People have also, it's not really being in four walls for most people. I mean, some people are kind of lucky and they get like a more condensed situation right now, but it's a very distance oriented, you know, in the same way that like going deep down into the ocean, right? And what that feels like, or being like really high up in space, okay, and what that's like to perceive something like that. So like a testing the limits of perception. Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Why are the current limits imposed? Why can't we perceive more? Why also at a more mundane individual level, why are we imposing certain limits onto perception? Why are we keeping ourselves certain places? Why are we constrained to certain places? Why are we not going further or getting a better distance situation? Why don't we have more also to tap into at a level of reservoir? So these are like the questions, you guys, that I feel we're answering during this time. It's deeply spiritual, but it's also important to not neglect the more worldly details that work in tandem with generating that kind of pure form spiritual path. And it's definitely a time to, in any question, in any debate you're having in your own life, whether it's spiritual, materialistic, relationship-oriented, whatever, to achieve or strive for balance no matter what. Like anything, like any question you're having to ask right now, like try to audit yourself every single time and be like, was that a balanced response? Was that in any way like an extreme or polarized or like even haughty, arrogant, or contrarily also overly meek or overly submissive type of response? Because it's in these like polarized responses that the next, I suppose, the next tandem of chaos orientation will be decided. So what does that mean? That means like through choosing balance or not this time, we will choose chaos or not next time. So it's big stuff that we're working with like that. Like we really are deciding. So we're at the end of a cycle of Saturn right here, Saturn in Pisces, and it's going back. It's like kind of getting to its most advanced stage, but it's still kind of backtracking. It's still kind of reflecting. It's retrograde in Pisces. And this is where it's sort of like an elder or a very much older person deciding whether or not they're going to be like a kind or unkind person for the duration of their final times, which is a very, it's a high stakes kind of situation, especially if you think about that at more than just even an individual level, but like maybe a collective level of like humanity or, the globe deciding whether it's going to be kind or unkind based on its current reflections. So choose wisely what you choose to reflect on during this time. And I will say, taking this into more of like just a personal level again, it's vital for some people to get a little bit more stringent on what they're reflecting on or what they're choosing to think about relating to the past. So thinking of like an ex from the past, thinking of things which have no more to give now can be a way that the reservoir drains here. So evicting some people from our head is going to be important during this time, but for some people that won't happen until Saturn in Aries. But you can like really get ahead through doing that now, especially if you've had plenty of time to come to like one mind about certain things, paying close attention to what's being like overchewed or overkill or overwatered as well. You know, everything's a balance, like over-fertilized lands or gardens, overwatered gardens, overfed, overeating, stimulated things are still very much a part of the story for a lot of people here. And that Saturn retrograde is a great time to kind of redo those types of regimes that have us like oversaturating, overwatering, over-fertilizing, over-radiating. In fact, that's kind of like what Saturn retrograde, regardless of the sign, is all about. So try to make it personal like that as well, like just personal habits or personal maintenance in your life that is like any form of overkill. Try to rein that in here, spending anything. Anyway, everyone, I think that's about it for this video. What a wonderful video that I've enjoyed filming. One of the I've had the most joy actually filming this video of many in a long time. That was a really abundant channeling that came through for this, especially regarding the reservoir, regarding the way that we think about how we use resources, and regarding the way that we also refine and balance our spiritual assertion. So thank you so much, everyone. If you enjoyed it, do hit the subscribe button below. I have a new nodal paradigm video coming later this month, so turn on the bell notification to get notified when that comes out. This channel is also on Patreon, where there is a lot of premium content that is only available over there. That will be linked below as well. Thank you so much, and comment below and let me know what you think of Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Have a great one. Thank you, everyone. Bye.